Okay, let's look at some security options in Windows Server. And what I'm looking at specifically right now in this video is going to be the security options for the server itself. So we're not looking at anything Active Directory related, account related, anything system wide. We'll look at some of those a little bit later. But in the moment, we're looking just at options for the server itself. All right, so I've got a virtual machine set up and running here. It's running as a domain controller, just so you're aware. We're running an evaluation copy of it. And we want to take a look at some of our options for securing the server. So I'm going to click on Start and go to my settings. And in my settings, I want to find Update and Security. Now, obviously, Windows Update is a big part of securing the server. This thing, by the way, has just recently been installed, so obviously there are updates available. I'm going to worry about that a little bit later. Instead, what I want to do is take you here to our Windows Security page. And you'll notice 4 protection areas. There's actually a little bit more that you can do if you click on Open Windows Security. So I'm going to bring that up, and you see that 4 is now expanded to 5. All right, let's walk through some of these. Now, I'm not going to look at all of the options. I want to let you explore and discover and have the joy of discovering things on your own, but I do want to point out some key areas for you. So, security at glance gives you some warnings, virus and threat protection. So, tamper protection is not turned on. This gives me the option to do that right now. Security looks good. Protection history, nothing obviously would just come up. Firewall, and then app and browser control. Setting to block potentially unwanted apps is turned off. So this at a glance will let me turn things on. However, if I want to explore a little more deeply, let me come over here to virus and threat protection. So current threats, we don't have any. We can do a quick scan. We can set specific scan options. We can allow specific threats. So what we mean by that is something that Windows Defender has said, hey, I don't like this. I think this might be a problem. But we've said that's something that we actually need in order to function. So we'll allow that. That's what your allowed threats is. And then your protection history will obviously tell you about any threats that we found or anything like that. So virus and threat protection. Let's look at our managed settings here. So we've got real-time protection turned on, cloud-delivered protection is turned on, automatic sample submission is turned on. Here's the one thing it's complaining about. You see a little warning here. Tamper protection is turned off. Your device may be vulnerable. So to turn that on, we just click it and turn it on. Click it to turn it back off. Dismiss says, just stop telling me about it. I'm not going to do this. And then controlled folder access, so protect files and folders. Exclusions, we don't want that done with, and then change our notification settings. If we go over to firewall and network protection, it shows us that we have a domain net on our if our network location is identified as a domain network. Which notice that's the one that's active. That's because this thing is a domain controller. Anytime you are on a domain network and your operating system detects that you're a member of a domain, it's going to activate this profile. And it tells me that on my domain network, my firewall is turned on. If I'm on a private network or a public network, my firewall will also be turned on. So if I'm disconnected from the domain, then it will go to one of these two based on, you've probably seen the sidebar comes rolling in. Would you like other devices to be able to connect to this? And you say yes or no. If you say yes, it assumes you're on a private network and so uses this profile and this firewall. And if you're on a public network, it will use this one. That's more of an issue with laptop computers than it is with servers, but there it is. If we want to do some basic firewall management, we can allow an app through a firewall. We can set our notification settings. We can go to advanced settings if we want to do something a little more extreme. We may look at that in a week or two. And then we can restore firewalls to default. Okay, app and browser control. This is where we activate Smart Screen and exploit protection. So Smart Screen is this one right here, reputation-based protection. If we look at those settings, we can check apps and files, and then we can block potentially unwanted apps. So we would do that by clicking here. And then we can choose, do I want to block apps, downloads, or both? And that's what these checkboxes are for. So that's using Microsoft Smart Screen. Now the other part of this is exploit protection. And so we can click on the settings, and here is all of our settings, exploit settings for system settings and program settings. Now, you want to be familiar with what these are. They're all turned on, well, almost all of them are turned on by default, and typically you're going to want to leave that alone. But if you have to manage them, here's how you do it. On by default, off by default, or use default. If you want to set exploit settings for a particular program, that's where you would do it. This is where you would do that. So here are all of our programs that are pre-set up. I did not do any of these. This comes pre-configured with Windows system. So I can look at them and then either remove those program-specific exploit settings or edit those program-specific exploit settings. Now, if I want to, I can also add additional programs here. And I add that, I'd pick the exe file or the executable file, and then I could say for this particular program, use these particular exploit settings. All right, device security. So core isolation and secure boot. You can view the details here. And then your protection history is going to give you a summary of pretty much any notifications you need to be aware of from your Windows Defender. Okay, this gives you a real quick overview of a lot of the options you can use to secure your Windows Server. Be aware that because Windows Server and Windows Client share the same core, most of the same settings are available for Windows Client as well. Now again, this does not help protect the network at large. It does not help protect Active Directory, but it does help protect the core server operating system itself. And so as such, it's something that we probably want to look at and make sure that the settings match what our security policies are and what we think we need.